All right, so this is class 6. Let's get to it. Um, so right off the bat here, realistic modeling. So that's basically what the next assignment, or next project is. So there's two main projects. One was to create the cartoony character model. The second one here is to create a realistic model. And basically you're going to create a model off of yourself. You're going to do a self-portrait, which may be good or not depending on how you feel about yourself, but that's what you're doing. What I would tell you this is that, that's the goal if you're a modeler, is that you want to be able to create a realistic model. One of the head recruiters from Sony ImageWorks came to my school when I was working there, and they said, the thing that they looked for was not, and this was for their animation division, so doing Hotel Transylvania or Surf's Up or wherever. They don't, for their modelers in there, they don't look for people who can model cartoony characters. They look for people who can model realistic characters. Because if you can model a realistic, believable human being, then you'll be able to model a cartoony character. You know what I mean? Like the skill level for that is so much higher than the lower thing. So that's basically the goal. So if the ability to model a realistic, visually captivating human, something that that has a likeness to somebody else, is loads beneficial. Okay, because our eye is very in tune and can pinpoint discrepancies and where things are unrealistic. I'm sure you're familiar with Uncanny Valley. When things are close to being realistic, close to being believable, but don't quite get there, they're extra creepy. That's basically the whole point. Okay, so that's the arete. All right, that's the peak. That's what we're shooting for. All right. So to do that, the best way to really go about it is anatomy. Okay. There's a lot of different reasons for this, but basically what it comes down to is that it is something that's going to influence all of your work. Knowing the base of what you're working on, having that thorough knowledge of how the body is, is formed, how what lies underneath that, the understructure, and also the study of it makes you a better artist than almost anything else. Again, it has a lot to do with the fact that we are so in tune with humans because we read them every day. That's what we read. That we are very critical of it, and so you have to be especially accurate when developing those forms. All right, the head and trunk together. Well, I'm not going to go through what this is, but basically you get the idea that this is sort of a proportions of a human. Now, what I will tell you is this: this is totally not right. This is a generalization. Obviously, depending on person to person, widely varies. Not wildly, but decently varies. A good example is me and my brother, or my brother and I. He's like 5'5" and I'm 5'7". We're shoulder to shoulder, same height. I have a very large head, so my proportion on this chart would be different. I think he has probably kind of a smaller head, but my head's way too big for what it is. I'm like Andre the Giant whenever I'm put my head next to somebody else. So anyway, this is a good thing to think about, and maybe while you're modeling, maybe try to think of things that you can use as guides on that specific model. But don't hold this as as canon, like it has to be this way. This is just a generalization. It could be different. All right. So, but try to use the body that you're using. Try to use its own proportions in there to maybe measure, like, oh, I noticed the arm is the same height as the head on this particular person, which would be weird, but skeletal anatomy. All right. So this is gonna be a longer lecture. Basically, the idea in the grand scheme of things is that the head is kind of a box. Okay, so it's one head tall, obviously, and it is one head wide, and it's about 3 heads quarter wide. All right, deep. I meant it's 7/8 heads deep. Sorry, and about 3/4 head wide. Right at the halfway mark is the eye. Okay, and the head is generally 5 eyes wide. I'm sure you've heard that before too. The nice thing is, though, is that if you take that and you cut this right in half, this way and this way, That's right where the auditory canal is, about halfway going back and matching also up with the eye line here halfway. And the auditory canal is where the ear is, which is really nice. Okay, so you can kind of figure out where the ear is there. It's also where the ramus of the jaw comes in, of the mandible here. So you can also figure out where the jaw goes in. So that's a really nice kind of guide. Okay, again, this is all, I'm not going to keep mentioning it, but this is all within a range of things. Okay, but do be aware too that the head is not round. It generally has these what we call eminences, which are sort of like protuberances. Basically, the idea is that there's flatter and rounder. There's apex of ranges of areas and points and things, and nothing's a perfect circle. Okay. The spine, the main thing to know here is that it creates a nice little S-curve, and you have a scaffolding. Okay, that it goes back and forth, and if we had the legs down here, it would start to go this way. Okay. And what that does is, because we're bipedal, it's a shock absorber. Okay, it allows us to when pressure is applied, it gets pushed all the way through. Okay, and each little bit can absorb that stuff. So if you look at a quadruped, you'll see that their spine is not nearly as S-shaped. The pelvis basically is the shape here. The best way to kind of look at it is like a square bucket. Okay, the main thing is to think about this inguinal furrow. All right, I like to kind of draw that in there, which basically is from the ilium to the pubic bone. Creates this little line here. All right. And on the top, you have the costal arch. So you have this nice little opposing shape thing going on. And you can read this. That's good. The thorax, which is basically the costal region, which is where this the ribs are. The ribs are sort of egg-shaped. They're a little bit narrower on the top and a little bit wider on the bottom. Okay. And I like to use this, what I call a cup. I just did air quotes. You can't see it. System where basically I think of the what I call the shoulder girdle, which is not what it's called, but I just call that anyways. Like, this is the pelvic girdle. Between the clavicles and the scapula on the other end, I kind of picture kind of having this circular part, and then down and around would create kind of the pectoral region. Okay, I think that kind of works because they're all kind of interconnected. The hand, the best way to think about the hand is to think of them in planes. If you look at your fingers right now, you'll notice that it's not round sausages. They're actually somewhat flat. They're more flat on the top and flat on the bottom, and then kind of rounded on the sides. Okay, which basically mimics the phalanges that are here. So it's best to think of them that way. It gives it more structure. If you try to draw them as round little sausages, it's going to feel kind of loose and it's going to lack weight. All right, the leg. So the leg is staggered. Basically, you can kind of see it going on here. That looks great. All right, the foot. You can see the foot here. That's all good stuff. All right, what I'm gonna do now is this. For your next project, or your next, obviously the next project is to create a real estate. For the first thing you need to do is prepare some photos. Okay, that's the most. Whenever you're going into any project, the first thing you need to do is research. Very first thing you should do. It's gonna make what you create more original in a sense, which I know sounds weird, because you're not going based off of what you've been fed. You're not using secondary information. You're using the source material. It makes it more believable because you're using real things, and it makes it more real to you, and it makes it more honest, and it's better overall. So. For this, what you're going to want to do is you're actually going to take pictures of yourself, okay, to use as reference and as your image planes, just like you used drawings before. This time you're actually going to just take pictures. Pictures I would like you to take, so these ones are obviously of me, is full body. I need a frontal and a profile. A 3/4 would also be nice, just because it gives you a good idea of what you would look from 3/4, but it's not as important, okay? But a full body of each of those. A head, you want a frontal and a profile again. You might think that this might be good enough, but you'll notice that the resolution, generally, even if you're using a good camera, and the angle also that you're looking at doesn't, because you can kind of see how this looks like I'm pointing up, and also at the feet it looks like I'm pointing down because of the distortion of the lens. Doesn't quite work. So if you can get a close-up, a nice straight shot of the front of your face and the side of your face, when you get to modeling the portrait aspect of this, it'll be a little bit easier. close-ups of anything that might be helpful. So of your hands, your feet, shoes, wrinkles, anything irregular that you might be, might help with details and such. So you might want to do a close-up of just the chest area so you can get the wrinkles and things right, you know what I mean? Or maybe the zipper or laces or whatever, okay? Extreme close-ups. This is more for when you get into texturing, but you might want to try and like capture what the fabric looks like, right? Or if there's a pattern, like a weird pattern, if I'm wearing like a striped sweater or something, I could take a picture of that. Things like that that you would actually use to apply. All right. The main one though really are these two here, the full body ones. So the next time it basically is to just do what I said. Take those pictures and have them ready. I would crop them and size them and try to make them match as best as you can. What I would suggest is just taking more and more and more pictures. It's not going to hurt to take too many because you can just delete them afterwards. But take as many as you can so that you can use those as a guide. And that's it.